All right, we're here on location on the Naval Academy grounds in front of Gunfighter 453. I'm here with good friend of the channel, Rear Admiral Mike Nasty Manazir. You guys remember Nasty? So Nasty, thanks for joining us on this really nice weather day.
It's beautiful. What your viewers can't tell is it's really freaking hot out here. And so we're on a time limit, but isn't that cool? And maybe Ward will tell you, but I flew in that jet in VF-124 between 1987 and 1989. I have hours and traps in that airplane. My name is on the other side of the canopy. So we're over here because of the view, but it's great to be here with you, Ward.
And we were here when this was christened. Actually, we were here when it was brought from Quonset Point and,
That's right.
and squared away. It actually had a complete AUG-9, ejection seats, everything.
The airplane was still alive.
Yeah.
We probably could have started if we had a hover.
So all the local Tomcat guys gathered and sat in it, and Size and I took a picture because we were rag buddies and we flew together. So in any case, thanks for coming out on this day. We have an important topic to talk about. Now, on the channel, in recent months, I've talked about the F-47. And over the years I've had the channel, 6th generation capability has been of great interest to our audience. So we have breaking news, as it were, and let me read this item to start off. So this is from USNI News, our friends at USNI. The Trump administration has not yet decided whether it will move forward with FAXX, which was the Navy's 6th gen airplane. The Navy's fiscal year 2026 budget proposal seeks $74 million to complete the design of FAXX should the administration choose to continue with the program, according to a senior defense official. A decision about the program is up to President Donald Trump, Navy Secretary John Phelan, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the official said. The FAXX program will maintain minimal development funding to preserve the ability to leverage F-47 work while preventing oversubscription of a qualified defense industrial base, this official said. The F-47 is the Air Force manned 6th generation fighter that Trump and Hegseth announced in March Boeing would build. It's the priority and will pave the path for 6th generation capability across the Defense Department, according to officials. Quote, "We did make a strategic decision to go all in on F-47 with a $3.4 billion request for that program due to our belief that the industrial base can only handle going fast on one program at a time, and the presidential priority to go all in on F-47 and get that program right, while maintaining the option for FAXX in the future," this defense official said, end quote. Asking whether the Pentagon is considering a similar arrangement to the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter Lightning II program, in which there is a variant of the F-47 for the Navy, the senior defense official said, quote, "At this time, I would pretty much say everything's under consideration to get the tactical air capability that our warfighters need as quickly as possible, and that's really what we're looking at. The most is the schedule of all these programs," end quote. The senior military official said the Pentagon is committed to the 6th generation aircraft. Quote, "How that's achieved right now, the F-47 is on path to be the leading agent of that, but 6th gen is where we want to go," end quote. And then another quote, "You interpret it as the F-47 is our priority and that we're looking at the industrial base's capacity and how that program goes moving forward," end quote. So viewers will also remember that the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman did a recent visit to Area 51. And so that was on their way back from Singapore, that defense conference. So we thought, oh, they're there to check on the program, the F-47 program, see how it's going. So let me ask you to leverage your entire career. As you mentioned, buku hours in the A and the D version of the F-14. You've flown this very airplane. So put your in the cockpit all the way to CO hat on. But more so, I would like you to put on your N98 Director of Air Warfare hat, because you had that billet, as we talked about in the episode that we did right over there at the Naval Institute. So based on this breaking news, your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Ward. And gosh, so much to unpack here. And I have to be very careful because I'm actually read into both the F-47 and the FAXX in my recent role in the Boeing company. And so I've got to make sure that I stay where I'm supposed to stay. So first of all, people think that a specific generation of aircraft is what we need to like win the fight. Like, you've got to have just this thing. What you've got to realize is it's the combined power of the air wing. And so right now, that air wing consists of F-35Cs and F-35Bs, with the United States Marine Corps flying in the same airspace. You've got Super Hornets with mass. You've got E-2D Hawkeyes that are working with the F-35s to ID downrange. It's always been about the combined power of the aircraft carrier. And so as we move forward, you've got to move into an aircraft that can be plugged into the air wing and capitalize on the strengths of the 5th generation F-35, the 4th generation F-18, and the capabilities of the E-2D. The reason that this particular design is so important is because one of the requirements, and I'm not saying the design is there, I'm not going to do anything about the design itself, one of the requirements is extended range. The air wing right now has a range of about 900 miles max unrefueled, and you got to have a tanker pretty much right there when guys are coming back. So depending on what you're doing, depending on the profile, we don't have enough range off the air wing to get in to what we want to go do. Third theme, carrier survivability. There are people who are out there that say carrier will never survive in a DF-21 or DF-26 environment. That's BS.
Hypersonics is what you're talking about.
Hypersonics, time critical strike, kill chains that are very dynamic and precise. If you stay in one place, you're going to be targeted. The United States will put American carrier strike groups inside the envelope of the DF-26, the DF-21, and whatever other, anti-access, anti-denial weapon that our adversaries would have. In this case, I'm thinking about the Western Pacific. Now, you and I remember in the 80s, we used to mod lock. So the carrier would stick in a box and it would run around in there doing flight operations, and we would just fly to where we needed to go. There's no mod locking in the South China Sea. You're going to roll in, you're going to go out. You're going to go in, you're going to do your effects, you're going to go out. But in order for you to do that effectively and enable the carrier to go in just far enough, you have to have that extended range of the design that we're thinking about in the FA-XX. Last point, I'll turn it back over to you, let me go to the N98 piece of this thing. And by the way, I did get to fly a Block 2 Super Hornet. Didn't get to fly a Block 3 Super Hornet, but I got to fly a Block 2 Super Hornet. Not very good at it, just a stick monkey. I need somebody like you in the back seat, to be able to fly that airplane. But the capabilities in a Super Hornet are really, really, really good. They're really good. People go, it's 4th generation, can't go downrange. It actually can pretty far. And when you put a long-range weapon on it, if you're rail-to-rail AMRAMs and AMRAM pluses or whatever it is that's out there now, you're going to have that capability to reach out and touch the enemy, particularly when you have F-35s downrange bringing combat ID back. Okay, and so you have to have that capability. All right, let me put my N98 budget hat on. It's all about priorities. And so I used to fight tooth and nail, knife in the table, battling not only with other entities in the Pentagon, but also inside the Navy for naval aviation. And then when I was the N9, my last job for a year and a half from 2016 to 2017, now I had to balance what was unique and critical for the United States Navy warfighting. And so I understand, even though that quote was very difficult to read and was all over the place, I understand the budgeting challenges when we're talking about new ships with frigate, with SSNX, with trying to get Virginias out there, with trying to get ships out there, and now we want to do naval aviation. Well, wait a minute, we're still buying F-35s. Yeah, but in order to stay up with the threat, we have to have FA-XX. And I have told Congress in person, because they asked me as an XN9, we have to have FA-XX. It's a budgeting drill. You have to be able to prioritize the budget to get that airplane into the mix and start to buy it. I'm really emboldened and I'm heartened by the fact that Congress, all 4 committees, supports FA-XX from the Navy. And I think what you're seeing now, last point, I really will turn it over to you. We've had an age-old fight with the United States Air Force about strategic air. And way back in the 50s, strategic bombing versus aircraft carrier air wings. We're back to that again. You'll hear the Air Force talk about, the Navy doesn't need FA-XX. We'll do that from here. What they're trying to do is push the carrier out to be not a day one force, but day later on. We have to have both. The F-47 has got to be able to reach into the Air Force inventory and again connect, be able to make that work. And the aircraft carrier air wing with 6th generation F-35, F-18, E-2D has got to bring that fight from the sea.
Well, obviously Midnight Hammer is a data point towards the Air Force's point. I know there were growlers involved and there was a strike group or 2 right there in the North Arabian Sea, but this is the way it's ever been since 1947, right? The revolt of the admirals. Okay, so got it on the budgetary side. And another note is there was no food fight because this decision was taken away from the Navy. Right?
That's correct.
Sometimes that's what happens. It's
Yep.
like, here's what you get. Okay, so let's talk about, because folks may think, oh, we'll just put a tailhook on the F-47 and now you got a carrier airplane. We've had some successes with Commonality, as it were. Particularly, I'm thinking off the top of my head, the A-7 was both an Air Force and a Navy airplane. The F-4 was both a Air Force and a Navy airplane. The F-35, although the C model is a different shape and obviously carrierized, but we had a sort of infamous failure that I've documented on the channel when I'm talking about the Tomcat with the F-111. And that's what Admiral Conley went out and tried to land it on the boat. He's like, this thing is not carrier suitable. And that's how we started to go all in on Tomcat. So as we think about, and as that official said in passing, we're going to sort of leverage all the things we learned testing and evaluating the F-47, there's so much more into it. So what are some of the things that maybe the viewers don't think about?
So there's a couple things that go into a program. So first of all, when we had, and there's an F4 over Ward's, his shoulders here, way back over in Aviation Park here at the United States Naval Academy. But the common F4 was designed as a Navy airplane. And so the Air Force flew it because those requirements, the Air Force wanted those requirements at the time. They met their needs. The A-7, the same thing. The F-47, I don't believe, is designed as a carrier airplane. I don't believe it is. The FA-XX, because of that design, and there is a mature design, and there is designed as a carrier airplane. What you can gain with the commonalities of the two programs, if there are any, is you can save cost in testing, evaluation, combat systems, anything that's common except for landing on a deck. And you can save cost in being able to put those two programs kind of as sister programs. I don't think the Department of Defense is going to do the Joint Program Office again like they did with F-35 and with all the partners, where there's an F-35A, an F-35B, and an F-35C, which are three completely different designs. And it was sold at the time as 93% common everything, but actually it's turned out as three different airplanes, and it's been just a nightmare to be able to keep all of those airplanes moving and the international partners that we have.
Well, so that's also the selling point for Super Hornet, right? That ultimately wasn't quite as common. The Venn diagram didn't overlap as much as the promise up front. So it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the Super Hornet was, I think they did a really nice job. There are some things you can do in defense programming and procurement that I think that what they did was said the Super Hornet was going to be common. They just did it as an engineering change proposal in ECP to a Hornet. It just kind of buffed it up. Yeah, but it worked real well, right? And so the ability to procure something at a reduced cost by using commonalities and stuff, we should do that all the time. If there are common testing points, if there are common evaluation points, if there are common combat systems that can be shared between the two designs, if that's the case, and be able to reduce the cost of both, or especially the cost of the follower. There's a unique situation we have here that if there's enough commonality that if we're already building F-47, imagine drafting behind a bicycle or a NASCAR car, and you're the second guy. Well, what if that was the same with two programs? The second program is going to have less cost for the nation to be able to go do some of those common things if we can get it to the same place. And the other thing I'll push back on, and that quote was in there, we do have enough industrial base to build these airplanes. We absolutely do. We've got Northrop Grumman with what they're doing. We've got Lockheed Martin what they're doing, and the Boeing Company. The Boeing Company has enough capacity to build the FA-XX. Okay, and you've got three big companies that are in stealth. All three companies are in stealth right now. And as we move forward, Boeing won the F-47. Well, gee, wouldn't it be interesting to have some cost savings if you could flow in the sister program right behind it, if that was the case, if they're common enough to do that? I don't know if they are, but I am tired of hearing people say, well, we can't afford the industrial base, or we don't have the industrial base, so just we're not going to do it. The threat's in the living room. It's not even at the door. It's in the living room. We have to risk. We have to, because if we don't risk, we're going to be dead day one. We're not going to be able to get in there. All the Chinese are going to do is they're going to bomb all the airfields that are close, and they'll establish all that island chain right there where the anti-access, anti-denial is going to be full of a lot of risk, and we're not going to be ready, and we have to be ready. And so this argument about our industrial base is not ready, make it ready. You know, especially with the beautiful bill that's coming right now, with money going into shipbuilding and stuff, and money going into reshoring and remanufacturing, we ought to bow up the industrial base in our country so we can be ready to do this stuff, and we better start doing it like right now.
So roger that. I think the quote from the defense official is shorthand for this is all that the appointees and the executive office has the ability to pay attention to, because the promise from SecDef to POTUS is I'm going to get you this airplane before the end of your term. So we'll keep our eyes on the prize here. Yes, this budgetary decision is, let's call it a setback, but like you stated, the Navy absolutely needs carrier-based 6th gen. That's a fact. So this isn't the end of 6th gen for the Carrier Strike Group. Nasty, always great to have you aboard. Thank you for coming out on a Sunday, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon, if not before Hook, and having you on the channel again soon.
It sounds great, Ward. Thanks a lot. This was awesome.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.